But first, some lives in the public arena don't improve as time passes. Eventually the truth comes out and we find out the worst of what went on behind once closed doors. Now, I suspect that'll be the fate of Daniel Andrews and his government after he resigned today as Victorian Premier, effective within 24 hours. There's no doubt that he's dominated this state for 9 years. There's no doubt he was one of the most brutally effective political players I've ever observed up close in politics. But that says more about the weakness of his opposition, internally and externally, than the quality of his leadership or his government. Under Andrews, debt has blown out massively, the worst state debt in the country. Taxes are up, projects are billions over budget and years behind schedule. The state is in the grip of a housing crisis and small business are on their knees, having never recovered from the Premier's world record-breaking lockdowns. Post-COVID, suicide is a scourge. The state's big hospitals are routinely on bypass with rats in the corridors, and ambulances, well, they're called, but too often they never arrive. And who can ever forget the Andrews legacy of gender-fluid primary school kids, biological men in women's prisons, an Indigenous Treaty Commission the Victorians never voted for, drug injecting rooms, and the all but cancellation of Australia Day. That's before we even get into the issue of Victoria's crime crisis with home invasions, violent assaults, carjackings and youth crime on the sort of scale you might expect in Johannesburg or South America, but not here in Australia. And yet the Teflon Premier was untouchable. Despite signing secret deals with the Chinese, despite putting the Labor Party into administration, despite the numerous inquiries into allegations of corruption or abuse of power, that always seemed to conclude that whoever was to blame, it was never the Premier, without whose say-so, nothing ever happened in this state.
I can't specifically recall.
I can't recall. I presume I did.
I don't recall the conversation.
And I have some memory, but not full memory.
I don't recall specifically.
Not to my recollection. I have no recollection of that.
I can't specifically recall.
Well, now he's gone. My only regret is that he resigned and he wasn't voted out of office or taken away in handcuffs. And while it's a long way back for Victoria, today when he got to his feet and said it was time to go, it was hard not to feel that the sun was shining just a little bit brighter in Melbourne. Now, did he go before his past finally caught up with him? Or was it because he had extracted the one last promise he needed, that the federal inquiry into the pandemic would not look at the states, would not look into him or look at his secrets? Was that what he was waiting for? The commitment from Anthony Albanese that premiers like Andrews would not face a royal commission and that any COVID inquiry would not investigate them? Well, he got that last week and now this week he's gone. The man who made Melbourne the world's most locked down city, the man who gave Victorians the most miserable 2 years of our lives, off scot-free, and in his wake, he leaves a state that's still broken, a CBD struggling to get back where it once was, a legacy of mental health harm, and small businesses that will never recover. Daniel Andrews said today he doesn't look back.
I'm not a regretful person. I don't look back. I've always been, I'd like to think, I've always been focused on the future. I'm sure many people would have answers to that question, and they might run to more than one thing. But that's a matter for them. This is a democracy. I've never been about being 100% popular.
Doesn't look back, he says. Well, he needs to, because believe me, we haven't forgotten.
What's this?
An ultrasound in an hour.
Yeah, she's pregnant.
You're Ed. You're what the are you doing? What the are you doing?
Media! Media! Media!
They're throwing stuff now, and okay, they're shooting. They're now shooting.
And yet today he expected us to be grateful. Today he was even proud of what he had done. As I said, history will be his judge. You can't bully history like the Premier has bullied and humiliated others, the media included, for years. Now, often when big characters leave the stage, we say we'll never see their like again in our lifetime. In the case of Daniel Andrews, by God, I hope that's true.